involved, there is never a dull moment. Tonight we are here to launch something truly special, Andy's first book and his legacy, Success Curious. This book helps readers reframe what success means to them on a personal level before they go out and pursue it. This is feedback from a reader recently. Hands up if you have read the book. Oh, we can do better than that. Hands up if you actually own the book. Awesome, there we go. Before we get into more fun, please can we all just acknowledge and make some noise for Andy Reid. A reminder, we are currently live on YouTube recording an episode of Andy's Success Curious podcast. It will be posted in a couple of weeks' time. I'm just going to go through some fun stuff you need to know before we get into the evening. Cheering, clapping and laughing is highly encouraged and recommended. It's a live show, so we want to keep the energy up and curiosity alive.
I didn't give you that bit.
No, you didn't at all. The bar remains open, so grab a drink and enjoy the night throughout the evening. Books are available tonight to purchase. If you love what Andy has to say, which I'm sure you all already do, you can grab a copy. And if you're feeling generous, stock up for your team, business, your friends, and your family. And let's get social tonight, guys. If you're getting some pictures, you're creating some videos, please make sure you share your thoughts, your takeaways, and the highlights of tonight on your socials and tag at Andy Reid Coaching and use the hashtag #SuccessCurious. We want to relive the magic of tonight for future time. We've got QR codes on the banners in the other room, so please make sure that you scan them to get access to all things Andy, including... Wow. You will get insights to wild Andy stories behind the scenes, which is my personal favourites. Who recently saw Andy's story of his car being stolen. I myself thought it was quite humorous, and Andy definitely is good at that. For those who don't know me, my name is Sarah Sincotta. I'm also known as the BDM mentor and the corporate hippie in real estate. I work with property managers and business development managers across Australia and New Zealand, and I'm passionate about connection and growth. Beyond that though, I wear many hats. I'm a mum, a daughter, a sister, a fiance, an award-winning mentor, a passionate advocate for personal and professional development. And at the end of the day, I'm just a human like you all here tonight and watching live. Now, let's talk about the man of the hour, Andy Reid. Andy and I go way back, all the way back to our Stockdale and Lego days. We were fresh-faced, full of energy, I think we still are, and figuring some things out. And according to Andy now, we're officially old and have grey hairs. Our careers and lives have taken us on quite a wild ride, but through it all, we've shared similar values, the same drive and ambition, and a whole lot of deep conversations. Andy has always felt like a brother to me. He's someone who pushes boundaries, challenges perspectives, and brings the unstoppable energy to everything he does and to everyone he meets. Do you all agree? Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll pay you later.
Andy typically doesn't like the light shine on him, but tonight, however, I think we make an exception, Andy. So the man of the hour, you know him as an award-winning auctioneer, a speaker, a powerhouse coach, the host of Success Curious podcast, a champion of growth, a guy who never shies away from honest conversation, and now an official author. Woohoo! He's poured his heart, soul, and late-night rants into this book, and tonight we get to celebrate the journey with him. So please, let's make some fucking noise, raise our glasses, and welcome Andy Reid!
You're awesome. Mwah. She actually is a bit like a little sister, and she's sort of adopted a lot of the swearing that I've... That's the wisdom that I impart on people, how to use swearing in the most appropriate and inappropriate ways. Team, look, I am truly, truly humbled by everybody that's here tonight. It seriously does warm my heart tremendously. A guy who is not designed to write a book. I really am not. It is not in my DNA. I am riddled with ADHD, which is probably why I'm a half-decent auctioneer. And as a result of that, last year was a real pain in the arse. I'm not going to lie. It was a real pain in the arse. And lots of 2:30 a.m.s questioning my life choices was sort of the theme of the 8 months that it took me to write and edit this thing. What's come out of it, though, is something pretty cool in the sense of you read it and it's not me trying to change the world, right? There's plenty of people trying to do that shit already. What I'm going to try and do is try and make the world a bit more relatable for people, right? Because success, and we're going to talk about it with some way more intelligent people than me. Success obviously is defined by the person who's looking at it, but at the same time, so many people struggle to find it. And I'm wondering why, when success has been the same shit since ancient Greece, right? There's poor Stoics like turning in their graves because some other muppet on Instagram has made 50 G's off some post, right? You know what I mean? So hopefully I'm going to make success a little bit more accessible for people. That's the plan. And hopefully it works out. So let's get stuck into the podcast, shall we? Now, as Sarah mentioned, I would love as much noise and fun as possible. Hopefully some genuine laughter, but a little bit of canned might not go amiss as well. I am a pom. We have not got the best sense of humour. And as well as that, team, like the 4 people that are coming up and joining me on this episode of the Success Curious podcast are 4 people that I hold in high regard for different reasons, for very, very different reasons. They've all been guests on my podcast over the course of last year. They've all had some incredible things to say, and they're just some of the best humans that I've had the fortune of meeting. So, are we ready to rock and roll, Alex? Team, we can do better than that. Are you all ready to rock and roll? Fabulous. Now, you'll have to excuse me, but I've got to be a little bit wanky for the start of the podcast. So excuse me for a second while I kick the podcast off, all right? So are we ready, boys? All good? Awesome. Welcome, one and all, to the Success Curious podcast. It's your man, Andy, here, and we're coming to you live from the Pier, Port Melbourne. Fucking yes. Get up. That was what I wanted. Look, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join me on the podcast and everybody here joining me in attendance here at the Pier in Port Melbourne. It's a cracking venue. We've got the sea out onto the side of me. Who'd have thought it? A lad from Derby looking out there in 2025. It's a little bit less salubrious if you know where Derby is. Team, I'm about to introduce to you 4 guests that I am so grateful to have in my life in some small way. They have all featured, I believe, in my book, Success Curious, which this is the launch of. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, yes, you are listening to the launch event of the book, Success Curious, which is out in stores and Amazon and all the rest of it. Had to do a plug. So, team, let's kick things off by introducing our first guest. Now, this lady is someone that is responsible, so don't blame me, blame her, for this book coming into existence. Shannah Kennedy is a coach of years experience. She has been coaching high-performance athletes for a number of years and has really led a real shift in empowering women in particular, but she's not shy of saying it as it is as well. It's probably why we get on as much as we do, and a lot of the time where she says, Andy, fucking get over it. All right, okay, no problem. So, I'd like you to please put your hands together for my first guest, Shannah Kennedy. Now, next up, we have a gentleman who I had the fortune years ago in a land far, far away of selling his first house. This was before he even got into real estate. We randomly met each other. I fell in love with his wife because she's got the best tea collection on the planet. He's also a proud owner of a Rottweiler who he claims farts like a trooper. but I think he's just blaming it on someone else. Hopefully his propensity for flatulence is withheld over the course of this evening. But in all seriousness, he is the founder of Colmio, which is one of the most impressive platforms in real estate when it comes to property management, transactions, and communication. Put your hands together for the incredible Scott Bateman. Now, the next lady who is joining me, I only really got to connect with, although I knew her from afar, from a distance. Mel Yu, who is joining us next, is a brand expert. She is a leader. She's a founder of MCO Events. She does marketing. We were just having a conversation before how she does that much that nobody can keep up with her. She's got a firecracker of an energy to her, and she wears her heart on her sleeve, doesn't even come close to who she is. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce to you the incredible Mel Yu. And last, but certainly not least, now this gentleman features in the book. It's like, obviously I feature in the book a little bit, right? Kind of had to. But after that, this man is probably the guy who features in the book the most. And it's with good reason. Rik Rushton became a mentor in 2011 and very quickly became a friend after that. I see him as someone, I refer to myself, actually, as one of his disciples, right? This is how much regard that I have for this gentleman. Now, you wouldn't think it based on how I introduced him to the book, and a bunch of you wouldn't have seen it yet, but as you'll see very shortly, very shortly, what he lacks in vertical prowess, he makes up for in a height of intellect. He is the best-selling author of The Power of Connection. He is a speaker of the highest caliber. Rik Rushton, everybody. So welcome, gang. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this. Honestly, the privilege is absolutely all mine. Now, you got a mic between two. So for the benefit of the people in the room that don't know who you are, we'll just do a quick introduction as to who you are and what you're about. And we'll start with you, Shannah, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. I've got a proud mama moment here where, you know, we were sitting in a cafe and he said, I'm going to write a book. And I'm like, okay, you've just given a dog a bone here, so let's make that happen. So that's what we did. So I'm very proud to be here. So thank you very much. Yeah, so my name's Shannah Kennedy and I'm a high performance life coach, and it's all about high performance living and helping people create their personal high performance plans for the next 10, 20 years. So the brain needs a roadmap, and I'm the person that really helps you discover who you are, where you're going, and how you're going to get there.
In my word, she's done a pretty good job of that with me, I have to say. Getting me pinned down to write a book. I mean, I did 3 years of a degree and struggled to do 3,000 words at the end of that. So to write a book is pretty good going. You can tell she's good at what she does. Scott.
Hi, everybody. I have a dog who does do what Andy said. I assure you, it's not me, despite his commentary.
Allegedly.
I love the comparison between Rik and I, if you notice. Like, Rik is the icon and Scott's dog farts. That's the intro. My name's Scott Bateman. Andy mentioned I run a software company as my day job. I have a wonderful life with my beautiful wife up the back here in Melbourne. I had a real terrific talk, sort of chatting with Andy about all things success a little while ago on the podcast. And one of the things that I love most is that when you read the book and you listen to Andy, people like me are probably a good example of why success is often kind of overcomplicated and overblown, and most of us are successful in different ways without all the kind of accolades that often come with celebrity and everything else. So I'm honoured to be here, so thank you, mate.
And what I will say about Scott, which is something that I should have mentioned, and it's going to make him blush a little bit, he is the youngest graduate of the Harvard Business School in the world.
In my year.
In your year.
In my year.
He's really clever. All right, Mel, after you.
I'm just around giants here. So my name is Mel, and you know, my purpose is to leave people in a better place than when I found them. And I think when we come to an event like this about success, it's very easy to lead with what it is that we do. When we go to a networking event, we say, hi, my name is, and then we go, and I am a, insert job title. But today I invite you all to maybe think a little bit deeper on what your purpose is and why you are here, because when you know your why really clearly, the how kind of just follows and it doesn't really matter. So I wanted to lead with that. I love connecting, I love relationships, I love understanding why people do what they do, which is how I've ended up falling in events and marketing and branding. And branding is all about knowing your why and then being able to explain that to your target audience or consumer. So that's my passion. Really excited to be here. Feel very, very honoured. And thank you for having me, and congratulations for the book launch.
Now, I don't know if you're going to need much of an introduction, mate, to be fair. I don't know if you're going
I'm just here for the open bar tab.
Yeah.
If I could get a Pepsi Max.
Yes, indeed.
Stat.
From one non-alcoholic to another.
Indeed. Am I doing, is this me?
Yes, mate.
This is my role.
This is your go.
My name is Rik, I'm a Gemini, I like pina coladas, getting caught in the rain.
I saw that coming a mile off.
I knew you did. Like everyone here, I'm here because of you, if the truth be known, and you forced me to, so there's a restraining order coming, and stop emailing me now. I'm here because we've known each other for the better part of 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've just enjoyed every interaction. You've given me so much. Like, my events don't happen without you kicking it off with that massive north-east of UK accent that no one can understand and are looking for subtitles. But, you know, I think we're all here because of this man, correct? So it really doesn't matter what we do up here. It's what this man here is doing and what you guys can kind of get out of it. So let's have a conversation. I think that's the way to do it.
I reckon we kick off. So, team, please feel free. Like was mentioned by Sarah, the bar is open, so feel free. As I'm sure lots of you know me by now, enough to know, I don't really do formal that much, all right? I'm a pretty chilled out kind of dude. So if you do want to get yourselves a drink, help yourselves, have some fun, interact. If you want to shout profanities, more than welcome to. At Rik, that would be fabulous. Okay, so team, let's kick things off. Now, success, as you've all mentioned, success is very individual, and it's something that gets overcomplicated, as you quite rightly mentioned, Scott. And as I mentioned before I introduced you on, there is clearly a disconnect between the knowledge and the people, right? And at the minute, social media, and tell me if you guys agree or disagree here, but it's how society has used social media. So we don't blame social media, but we blame how society has used social media. It's created a bit of an us and them mentality, the few that have versus the many that don't. Would you agree in generally, team? Yes or no? And so, and the thing is, the default answer to it is, well, it's hard, right? And not everybody can do hard. I want to call bullshit on that, though. I really, really do. Because I have this thing where I believe if you have the right reasons, you don't need discipline. It becomes a part of your DNA. It becomes a part of who you are. Take my the choice to not drink alcohol. Everybody looks at me and goes, "Oh, geez, well done." I'm like, well, it wasn't that hard. My daughter came up to me one night after a night on the Terps with my one of my closest mates, Keith, and Dan, who's also in the crowd, after a long road trip to Adelaide to watch Collingwood get their arse kicked. That was great. But what was even better was the Adelaide supporters punching on with each other and we're like there with popcorn. That was wonderful. And on the way back, it was the Monday night after the Saturday before, and I'd sold a house that day. And on the evening, my daughter comes up to us at 6 o'clock or something, and she's only 1 and change. She goes, "Daddy, come play." And I went, "Oh, Daddy tired, man. Daddy tired." She goes, "That's okay, Daddy, I go bed." How guilty do you think I felt? How shit a father did you think I felt? That moment was the reason why I didn't want to touch beer, because I'd rather be a good dad 7 days a week. And when you've got a good enough reason like that, you ain't got to worry about having a beer. So, team, I want to pose to you, and Shannah, I'll start with you. As a coach of so many years and so many years' experience, you would have seen people that have been successful under your tutelage and really gained momentum and ground and growth, but you will have seen plenty that haven't as well. From your years of experience, what are your observations been around the ones that do versus the ones that don't?
It's a great question. So there's a lot of people out there who have success, who sort of come and see me and they put their Ferrari keys on the table, and you know they've got all their money and they've got all their properties, and they are successful, you know, on Instagram and in their business. But they say, I have no fulfillment. You know, I only feel good when I'm doing the deal. I'm addicted to the deal, and I don't know who I am without my job and without everything. And for me, success is really helping them find out who they are without their job and building the person. And my background is actually coaching elite athletes into retirement, and that's why I became a coach 20 years ago, because they are on a pedestal and their life is not real. And they go everywhere and everyone thinks they're a god. And then the day that they retire or get injured, and they might be 25 years old, they go from hero to zero overnight because they haven't done the work on who am I without the job and what does success actually mean to me. I also think comparisonitis is the thief of all joy. So, you know, when we're scrolling and comparing, I always say it's like you're on the running track and you're doing really well, and you start to look sideways. What happens to your run? Yep. You lose pace.
Yep.
You forget about why you were running in the first place and what the goal was. So as a coach, for me personally, it is making sure that I keep people in their own lane and happy with who they are and happy with what they're doing, and stop comparing with everybody else, because then they can feel fulfillment and they can feel successful. We live in a great country. We have beds, we have cars, we have fresh food, we have fresh air. We should all feel pretty successful and pretty lucky. And I think we get a little bit too caught up on the external when we all know that happiness is an inside job. It really is an inside job.
And I think that's an amazing answer. And I mean, from my own experience with you, you know, we had many a, not argument, but many a me pushing back on you, because as we all have, team, you know, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and identity was something that was a massive challenge for me and has been for a long, long time. And when you talk about the fact that success is an internal job, when we are attached to the stuff as much as we are, because we are a consumer society, right? We just are. You know, we're a disposable consumer society. It makes it really hard to break away, right? And break away from yourself in order to find yourself almost. It's very, very weird. What you said, though, about identity being attached to our jobs, though, it was incredibly profound when Scott Morrison did the unthinkable and locked us all down. And I was up till 3 a.m. in the shed answering calls from agents who all of a sudden had no identity, it seemed. And they were bawling and crying and all sorts. These are successful people, guys and ladies, but they had no identity. They'd lost connection instantly with who they felt they were. It's a massive eye-opener, and you're absolutely spot on. You're absolutely spot on.
And I'd like to add to that, because I like to just butt in on you all the time when we're coaching, because he can talk for a long time. And I was like, you know, I need to get my words in here.
Yes.
So I think a lot of it with Andy too, and with a lot of people, is there is ego talking, or is it you talking? And it's really important to differentiate the difference. Do you want to write a book for ego, or do you actually want to really share your story and make success easy for people so that they can feel it and touch it, and don't make it this huge thing that we all have to do? And I think what was so beautiful about working with Andy is we parked the ego and we actually built the person, and he could write the book from the person. And I think that's really special, and he did a lot of amazing hard work, and it was such a pleasure to actually see it on the shelf now.
It's odd, isn't it? It's weird. Anyway, Scott, over to you, my friend. Now, when we spoke on the podcast, and this is one of the reasons why you are the first reissue. Your podcast, my friend, is the first repeat. You know, because not only do I just love talking to you anyway, but one of the biggest things that hit me about our conversation was what you quite rightly pointed out about the art of receiving as opposed to the art of giving. And when it comes to success is a two-way street, I find. And Scott, can you just talk to that a little bit, please? Because I think receiving is something that is so wildly underrated, but it's causing so many problems for people when it comes to owning success.
Yeah, I think it's a really complex topic. So if you haven't heard the original podcast episode, just to summarise, there's a fabulous book that I was given a little while ago, and it's called The Go Giver, as opposed to the classic Go Getter. And within that, they talk about these 4 principles. And the final of the 4 was about reciprocity and being willing to receive. And when I met with the gentleman who gave me the book, he said, "What did you think?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of fascinating. I've had this epiphany where I've realised I'm really comfortable giving, and I like giving, and I feel good when I give. I just cannot take things from people. I absolutely struggle to take things from people." And what he said to me was, "Well, the problem here is this, unless someone is willing to receive, nobody can give. So until you can receive, no one gets the benefit of doing something for you in the same way you get the benefit of doing something for them." And if you think about someone gives you a compliment, our natural reaction is to sort of palm it off and go, "Oh, no, 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 no," instead of "Thank you, that's very kind, I appreciate it," and letting them have the reward of giving you that compliment. When I think about success and you know what we talk about as you kind of work your way through life trying to get there, you don't tend to appreciate what you've kind of achieved or what you've got in the end unless you are comfortable kind of giving up some things along the way or inviting people into that process with you.
And look, team, give us a big yes if all of you feel awkward. Whenever anybody says something nice to you, is it true that everybody feels awkward? It really does. Like, we're just shit at it. We're just really, really shit at receiving any compliments of any kind whatsoever, right? It's a painful thing. Painful thing. See? I should do like a therapy thing right now and get everybody to compliment each other or some shit like that. But we won't do that just yet. All right, Mel. Now, your backstory is incredibly fascinating, confronting, and you've something like a bit of a phoenix that is continuing to rise through a whole bunch of flames, right? You came from a depth of sadness, and we don't want to give everybody depression just tonight, but it's really important. It's really important that we do this, right? So from a success point of view, when that event happened, we don't need to go into it. But when, from that point of view, how did success change for you? Because for you, it always seems to be a continually evolving process, as it is for many of us, but for you, it's more apparent. Mm-hmm. So how did that switch change for you?
Mm-hmm. Who in this room has ever gone through a struggle or a challenge? Hands up. So it actually is irrelevant what my story is, because we all have one, and I think we've all gone through hard things, yeah? And you've all come out tonight, and whatever that hard thing is has been in the past, and it's something that is part of your story, but it doesn't need to define your story. And I think for me, as I've continuously evolved, because there's been many, many hard things, as you've mentioned, and it's that resiliency and tenacity to never lose faith. For some reason, I've just always been able to keep like a silver lining of hope amongst all of the darkness. All of the experiences that have kind of come my way and handed to me, I've been able to reframe my mind and recognize that to be alive, to be truly alive, is to feel every single depth of what it means to be human. And so if you want to feel these amounts of success and fulfillment and happiness and joy, the shadow of that is sadness, is grief, is struggles, is challenges, it's all of it. And I look at my experiences and I'm able to use gratitude really, really deeply and actually implement it. Not just like wake up and write 3 things you're grateful for and it's the sun and, you know, that stuff's really important, but actually really embody gratitude. And so for me, to embody gratitude is losing my dad to cancer at 59 years old and really being able to be like, what a privilege it is to actually have compassion and empathy, to know what it feels like to say goodbye to my dad and watch his last breath in the hospital. It's a privilege.
It really, really is. It absolutely is.
And so, yeah, I think whatever that hard thing is, if you can turn it and flip it into a part of your story, but actually be grateful for that moment, then you're already by default going to be successful because you're able to do the hard thing.
Absolutely spot on. Now, there you go. And a big thank you to Mr. Fatini. You can tell he goes to the gym, and it's for this very reason, right? Adam Fatini, everybody give a round of applause for the roller shutter guy. Mate, no, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. This is a fluid situation.
Can I just say, the video guys are fucking asleep. If it takes a member of the audience to get up there and do that, what are you guys doing? What are we paying you for today? Alex, for fuck's sake, what is going on, my man?
Anyway, Anyway.
So gratitude.
So gratitude, yes.
Appreciation for the
Yes.
little things.
Yep. Anyway, so Rik, back on point, my friend. So from your side, I mean, me and you, we've had many a conversation in private about various things, both big and small. And you've been so instrumental in
Stop
me.
with the big and small when you talk about it. I'm getting a little bit of a complex.
Well, that's why I put you on the stage, right? So we're equal. So mate, like from your point of view, because you deal with thousands of people a year, right? Either at scale or from an individual basis. How do you feel success has been evolving in the, 3+ decades that you've been doing this sort of thing, where you've been seen as and gone to for answers around things like success?
Well, I think it's what Shan touched on at the start is very true. I think we get it measured externally. It's always about money and milestones, and you see it on social media. I've got a 20-year-old daughter. I tell her, don't let your friends' highly edited social media life make you feel unfulfilled about your uneducated and perhaps unedited life. And, her girlfriends are showing pictures online every day about some snappy new sort of thing they've bought or whatever. And I go, let me just see their photo at 2 a.m. in the morning when they wake up realising that they don't have the money to pay their credit card. I'd like to see that picture. So I think it's a little bit external, as Shan said earlier. And then, for me, success is much more the internal compass that Shannah was talking about earlier. And I think if all of us in this room think about when we're at our happiest, we're normally at our happiest when what we're doing is fulfilling a big need we have internally. And so I think where it's changed and pivoted a lot, real estate, specifically the industry that created us, and it's very much a statistical game, it's a money game, it's a GCI game, it's a results-driven game, and everyone looks at the scoreboard, and the scoreboard gives you validation. But ultimately, I've seen a lot of people make a lot of money onto third partner, fourth house, kids hate them. Is that yours? That could be someone's idea of success. But for I think what we've found in the transition, specifically in about the last decade, people are looking internal now and saying, there's got to be more to this thing than economics. And I think, for me, some of the most fulfilled people I find are like, single mums raising 3 respectful kids, very resourceful kids, a little bit more weak left at the end of the money, but they're okay, they're in good communication stream. I think that's a height of success that's right up there with planting a flag at the summit of Everest. So I think everyone in this room, will probably look to money as a guide, but it shouldn't be the external indicator that life is successful, because there's other areas of success. And so, when you said you wanted to write a book, I laughed, and then I thought...
Rightly so as well.
I did, and Dom, I did. But one of the things I thought about with that is, I thought, like Shan was saying, why are you doing that? Like, who's that for? And ultimately, when you look at it from the space of, I'm writing it to say, this is not hard, this is not complex, this is pretty, if I can do it, anyone can do it, so away we go. I think that gave you an internal drive. So if no one buys a book here tonight, but everyone's buying a fucking book here tonight, if no one buys...
Rik Rushton, the master salesman.
If no one buys, like, his lifestyle doesn't get affected with you by a $20 book. What are you selling it for?
I actually don't know. Leslie? Oops.
$30.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
I reckon there should be a
amount.
discounted rate. It's 34 degrees outside. We've come out on a Wednesday night, like, for Christ's sake. All I'm saying here is, right, anyone who writes a book for $30, Dom, help me out, and you work with groups that write tons of books, like, the author's lifestyle doesn't get affected whether you buy a $30 book or not, but yours might, because what the author has done has taken decades of learnings and some life experience and put it into some pages. And if you can't see the value in that, I don't know what podcast we could be on, how much more natural lighting we could create, or anyone better up here. The reality is that's the reality. So I think external, internal, I think Shan sort of knocked it out of the ballpark. We can all go home.
There we go, and this brings the end to tonight's proceedings. You talk about hardship and whatnot, and Mel, like, to your point, I mean, I'm looking around the room and looking at some of the people that have been on my podcast or I've done some work with from a charity point of view. I mean, Craig Turton, who's banging the centre of the room there, who is one of the founders of 100 Words Mate to Mate, which is a Melbourne-based mental health charity, mental wellbeing charity, who I've had the pleasure of collaborating with on a few projects and a few things. The things that he's seen and the people that he's talked to have just been insane. I mean, you look at Lockie down here up front, who is an absolute fucking rock star, by the way. So make sure you say hello to him, by the way. Lockie Cameron.
Single?
Are you single and ready to mingle? Yeah, he is!
Men?
Rik,
Anna, come on, let's get stuck into this. Anyway, Lockie, in his episode on the podcast, I was so grateful for him to share the shit that he's trawled himself through from an addiction point of view, and then he decided to, mate, there were fucking planes. You could have ran from Brisbane to Sydney by yourself on a plane, right? You didn't have to. Yes, true. He decided to do it on foot. All right, so he ran from Brisbane to Sydney on foot, which is pretty insane. Fucking mental. Absolutely nuts. And as a result, raised so much awareness around the challenges that are faced by that. And I'm so grateful that he's here. You didn't run back here from Sydney, did you? Thank fuck for that. All right. So onwards and upwards. Scotty, I want to talk to you again, mate. Now, we've spoken in like offline and whatnot about the challenges that you faced internally and externally when you were starting Colmeo and all the stuff that came with that, right? And all the squeaky bum moments that you've had along the way and continue to have. When we hit a hurdle, right? Because it's easy to get diverted from your lane when you hit a hurdle. What has been the things, or what have been the things that you've latched onto to help you stay the course to this point? Because, man, you've gone so well with what you've done.
Thank you. I guess it's kind of, it varies by the hurdle, I think is the first thing. Like some things, you know, the right thing to do is to not keep going with whatever that task is. Like there might be a clear signal, don't keep going. And the old expression of, what is it, quitters never win and winners never quit. It's like one of the worst things I've ever heard. It gives people all the wrong ideas. So sometimes the right thing to do is to actually step back and change course. I think if you have a really deep sense of conviction about the work that you're doing or how it benefits others or why it's important to you on a really personal, fundamental level, it is very difficult to kind of abandon that, irrespective of what the hurdle is. And I think sometimes it's about bringing really good people around you to give you a bit of counsel and advice, because often you're tired or you've got biases that might be clouding your judgment and you're trying to get away from some of that. But there isn't like a one-size-fits-all, you know, if this, do that. I think each time you've got to confront it and say, well, you know, in the grand scheme of things, at some point will I regret not pushing on with this? Or is the right thing to do just to kind of call it a day, learn my lessons and then do something else? It's not final.
And Shannah, I want to bring you in on this one, right? Because as people go along their lane and a hurdle comes across, you talk about ego, right? Being a pain in the arse in this respect, because ego would suggest that you keep ploughing through. So how would you suggest that we can circumnavigate our ego so that we don't like just go crashing into hurdles and cause more damage than good?
I think we need to, sometimes I talk to people that bigger's not necessarily better. And I think people think we've got to grow, we've got to do more. And that's not necessarily going to be the best result for you, because you're going to create a big mountain for yourself that you can't even control. So I always go back to, you know, what are your values? What's the most important thing to you in the world? I always say, when you get to your hurdle, let's just stop and say, what's the most important thing to you in the world? And I'll often say their health or their family. And I say, okay, well, we're at a bit of a hurdle here, so we've got many options to take, but let's just sit down and take a breath and think it through properly. And I think a lot of people don't take the breath. They just keep forging through, they keep pushing for more, rather than sitting down and actually getting a blank piece of paper out, going back to what's most important to them and making a really nice, educated decision moving forward. And that might mean we ditch something. And we have to park the ego, because it might not look that good. Oh, I was going to write a book and then it got too hard. Well, it may be not the right time or whatever it might be. But I think we need to go inside and really ask some questions rather than keep pushing and cause more damage.
Top answer. And Mel, I'll come to you off the back of that and we'll segue through nicely, because you are very much in the middle of this generation that seems to have more is more mentality, right? They do. It's just a simple fact that they do. And we're all susceptible to it, irrespective of generation, right? But you're right in the thick of it. So how do you help, like even in your social circles, how do you broach the subject when everyone around you is doing the whole more is more thing? Because the whole, I don't know if anybody, there's like 2 POMs, I think, that aside from me and this. No, 3! There's 3 POMs in this room, and there's a show called Keeping Up Appearances, an old British comedy. Hyacinth book it, right? And keeping up appearances is a massive problem in society these days. So what's the messaging around that? Because it's very easy to say, park your ego, and it's very easy to say it's an internal game and all that sort of stuff. Much harder to do, right?
When you know self, then not necessarily. So my personal brand is all about authenticity, and I know it's such a buzzword. But authenticity is really when your internal world matches your external world. There's congruency between who you are within and what it is happening outside. And when we're talking about this more, I think it's, instead of do more, can you be more? Can you be more present? When you're here, can you be here? Can you be more grateful? That's kind of like my energy on what I put out on social media. I think when you talk about social media, everyone's an entrepreneur in my age category. You literally change the category and you put entrepreneur and you're an entrepreneur. Yep. And then you can do founder, CEO of, tag your business, and then you can hire a Lamborghini now and do a photo shoot or a jet, and you're somewhat successful, right? There's this external thing, but if it's not congruent, the problem is it's not sustainable and it's not who you are. And eventually, 1, it's exhausting, and 2, it will just, the mask has to eventually come off at some point. And so this idea of when we're talking about success and why we're sitting here saying to go within is because so many of us are still not going within. We're still judging ourselves based on these external metrics because it can seem like a highlight reel, and your daughter's sitting right in the thick of that as well. Everything is face-tuned. Everything is, it's right at the tip, and we can edit like crazy. Like there will be a highlight reel of this by tonight. Like our ability to edit and craft and curate these manufactured experiences, it's just phenomenal, and plus AI. So with all of this innovation and stuff coming, how do you be more you? It's such a difficult question to answer, but you can when you have the right people around you, when you have people that, I have so many mentors, they're all in this room, and I call them all the time, and I'm like, what do I do here? I've got this new experience. How can I reach out? So really audit your circle. Networking is important, but it's also the network is important. Otherwise, you're just wasting time on networking, but really finding people that kind of don't want anything other than to just help you. And you can sense that frequency. There are people out there that genuinely, it doesn't make a difference. No. Buying Andy's, it doesn't make a difference. But calling you and you reaching out and actually happening, it's not a transactional relationship. And I think when you can really find those people and they exist, like your life changes because you're not alone and you're fully supported. And I think there's many in this room.
Couldn't agree more. And I mean, last week was a prime example. It was a wonderful retaught lesson for me when I jokingly said to myself, I bet my car's missing out the front, and sure enough it was. So that was fabulous. But the thing that really sort of made me go, fuck me, I am one sad individual, is the fact that I wasn't worried about the car, I was more worried about my auction hammer that was in said car. Fuck the 4 wheels, where's my hammer? I'm like lost without it, right? And as soon as I thought that to myself, and I had a little chuckle to myself, and I went, well, shit, there you go. At least I know who I am to a degree, right? At least I know who I am to a degree. Now, Rik.
Yes.
You are the proud owner of a 4-door. No. You are the proud dad of 3 incredible children, and the proud grandfather.
Thank you.
Granddad to a recently born incredible young lady.
I know what you're all thinking. How could he be a grandfather at such a young age? I know. Kat, look at that.
I heard the jaws drop as I said it. Speaking as a dad, let's take the professional hats off for a second, right? And speaking as a dad, because, Cal and Liza are kicking around somewhere. I think they've got bored and pissed off, which is fair enough. Which is absolutely fair enough.
They're downstairs trying to hike a car somewhere.
Yeah, they're probably trying to steal a car for
get one back to Clyde North.
They're intuitive. They are intuitive. But speaking as a dad, as a parent, as a grandfather, parenting, I was having a conversation with Eliza's teacher from last year. Eliza's 10, and he brought me in because we needed to talk about boys, right? Scary.
Yep.
And what was crazy and what we both agreed was the fact that success, life, stuff is all hitting us a lot earlier in our lives, right? Scary shit, really, really scary stuff. And you think about the rise of ADHD, and I definitely think there's a connection between the more is more and ADHD, right? I definitely think it's a learned thing, not a DNA. I reckon there is something to that. From your point of view as a dad,
Yep.
how can we articulate in a world that is so ever changing, ever evolving, we can't hide it from people these days, how can we learn to work with it in order to make sure that we find our lane? Because identity is such a massive challenge for people this day and age.
Well, I think it's one conversation at a time. It's no different to leading a team or leading a family or being a father or a mother or whatever you identify as. I think the conversation is where it's at, every conversation, one-on-one. And, so last night it was our daughter's 20th birthday. Her brother's come up with, her sister-in-laws and our granddaughter. But we have a rule in our house when we have a family gathering that phones sit in one section of the house switched off. So that's the off button on a phone, just in case you're wondering. That is not an optional extra. It actually can happen. How old are you anyway? Can I ask?
I'm not even young.
I don't know, yeah.
She just looks it, man, right?
I mean, the guy over there wants to card you for your next drink. I don't know what that's all about. So I just think, who is a parent in the room? Raise hands. Yeah. Who's not? Don't rush in on that lot. Look at happy. I mean, I think...
Latakis, keep it away, son.
For me, my view right now is this is the most challenging time to be a parent in human history. And I think that, if I had a challenge, I go to my dad. If I had a challenge, I go to my mum. I think kids in this day and age, if they've got a challenge, they go on YouTube or they go on some third-party reference point. We want to be relevant enough to be the person that they come and say, hey, got a thought here, can I have a chat to you? And I think you've got to create that space. Now, it's a learned skill, and I think the learned skill is we go with our thumbs, not our mouths often enough. And so I just think you've got to create those times. You don't find time to have compelling conversations with your loved ones. You make time. And when you make the time, the space is there, and they're used to it. It's a comfortable space to have a chat with. And, with girls and boys and girls and what does that all mean and all that sort of stuff. When it gets technical, I say go see your mother. But when it's very easy,
yes.
I step in. And, with the gentlemen suitors that are chasing my daughter, I explain to them that I've got a gun collection. The bullets go faster after 10 o'clock.
Yes.
And no, I don't say any of that because I just don't have to. She's heaven help the boy who tries to sort of throw it on her. She's just going to suplex them from the top two. This is getting really... I didn't want to go down this road. So I just think you've got to have the conversation would be my message. You've got to have the conversation. Taxi for Rex, thank you. Where's your fake Lamborghini?
Taxi for Arby.
Chris, fake Lamborghini is what I'm hearing there.
No, he's got
the real Lamborghini.
I was about to say, he doesn't have to worry about the fake ones. Now, team, we're going to draw this thing to a close. I wanted to open it up to the floor. Does anybody have any questions that they want to throw at these incredible human beings? Anybody got a question? Cue silence.
Did you get your hammer back from the car?
No, I didn't. I don't think I did. Mate, I think the Crims took it. Bless him. Oh, well. They took us, they actually stole a box of books, and I'm like, well, shit, at least you could do is, pass it out to some of your fellow Crims so they can be more successful Crims. Let's set some smart goals, right? I am going to steal 12 cars by the end of March. Fuck, at least make yourself useful. Jeez Louise. Anyway, look, what I want to have a final thought on is, and it's something that I always pose to my guests towards the end of the conversation. Oh, go for it. Thank you. Thank God for that. No, scream it and I'll repeat it.
Mary, you don't need a mic.
I would like to know from all five of you, who is the one person that did something that changed that corner that brought you to where you are today?
You go first, Shannah. I'm pulling rank on this one.
Oh gosh, okay.
Yeah.
For me, it was getting into sport from stockbroking. I was in stockbroking and I quickly saw it was a bit like the Wolf of Wall Street, and this is like 30 years ago and not a place for a woman. Got a job with a guy who was a lawyer who was very passionate about golf, and he had 10 of the country's best golfers, and he just asked me one question. Would you like to learn how to run a business from the ground up, the whole business? And I said, yes, but I have no skills. And he said, great, you're employed. And it was really about being really authentic and not faking it till you make it, and just saying, I'm really open to learning, please teach me, and let's get going. And that really opened a door to a whole world that I had no idea about.
Nice. Scott?
So mine was a professor, but it kind of came about by accident. So I was homeless and kicked out of school when I was 15. I went on my sort of corporate journey and did a whole bunch of different jobs and had this impossible kind of imposter syndrome that I was really struggling to overcome. And I booked this ridiculous stay to propose to my wife, convinced myself I wanted a life where I could afford these sorts of ridiculous things, came back with all the enthusiasm in the world just to get really rich. I was going to be the bank CEO by 40 and all this nonsense. So I enrolled in an MBA, and it was only when I got there that my professor sort of said, well, what makes you you and what do you really want? And I kind of broke down in tears and went, well, to be honest, I'm paralysed by this fear of failure, and everything I'm doing is because I feel like I've got to prove the world wrong. And through a whole bunch of work with her, I kind of got to know myself, finished the study, went and did a bunch of other study that Andy mentioned, and my life just changed profoundly. But it was one person sitting and saying, what makes you you, and what matters most, and what do you want?
Can I add one?
Yeah.
Can I add one? Because I like talking. And I always ask all of my clients this too, and Andy this, is who's the role model? And you might not even know the role model. So for me, one of them was Matthew McConaughey's Oscar speech, and he said that his role model is his 10-year-older, better version of himself who is happier. And when you think of your 10-year-older self and think about what could I do today for that person, and is the thirst for success actually going to make me feel like I want to feel when I'm 10 years older, that will help me make the better decision for myself. So I often think about, I'm 54, my 64-year-old self, and ask myself, is what I'm doing now really helping that person and to become who I want to become? And we can all do that for ourselves, and whatever your version of success is and how you want to feel, I think is a really big question to be asking.
Love it. Mel?
So the question was, is there one person that changed like the trajectory of our life, right? Mine was my boss. I have a business I've been running for 8 years, but previous to that, just before that, my boss, one time we had lots of falling out. The one thing he said, he looked me in the eye, and I said, I'm going to go out on my own. And he looked me in the eye and he said, Mel, you're never going to be successful because you're too emotional. And that one sentence and that one word at that point in time really impacted me, and I didn't realise how much it impacted me until I kind of delved into this world. I had a chip on my shoulder. I was like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove you right or wrong. And I think in our lives, we grab onto these opinions and thoughts from people, whether it's you're fat, you're ugly, someone somewhere along the line says something to you and you adopt it as your truth. And I'm saying to let that go, but you can find those one person in many, many things, and things will land for you. And it's finding those right positive people that continue to change the course of your life. And a very recent example, he's in the room, so I recently this year had to let a staff go. It was my very first layoff, and I'm a very emotional person. And so I had it really impacted me. I had a whole weekend where I was quite sad, and I just didn't know how to manage that emotion. I called a mentor and went to his office, Chris Toffey, and I said, I explained it, and he goes, Mel, I've let 70 staff go in my time, I've laid off 70 staff, and it's never going to get easier. But just having that soundboard changed the course of how I looked at things, because I can now go into my next layoff. Should I have more and more external success, it might not be my first layoff, but can I go into it with more grace? Can I go into it with more compassion? Can I find the language? So yeah, there can be many mentors and many people, so just be conscious of which thoughts you take on and make it part of your identity.
Rik, that was a good one. I like that.
You were lucky to get Chris, because my understanding is he's on a plane to the Trump administration, freeing up a whole heap of public servants in the US. I know, you love it. You love it. So my answer is, I don't think there's one voice of value that you could say change the trajectory of your life. If that's the case, you're probably a hermit on an island somewhere. My view. And one of the things Andy, I'm sure, will confirm, when you do write a book, you think about the people that have influenced you in just about every chapter. So for me, it started very young at school, and I think schools are full of lots of teachers, very few true educators. And I had a very true educator who said, you're very good at sport and shit academically. And if you put the same effort into your arithmetic as you do to competing in the sports arena, you could be anything. And he's still in my life today. My kids consider him like a surrogate grandfather. Amazing, changed the trajectory of my life. My first real estate boss changed the trajectory of my life. Jim Rohn, the best, greatest speaker of all time, changed the trajectory of my life. But what's really exciting is I get to look around the room like this, and I think of people that have changed the trajectory. There's no more dynamic person in the real estate industry than Leanne Pilkington sitting in row 4 right
100%.
here. And I met her on a fancy dress night drinking a lot of alcohol. Now,
Which one?
If you just said to me in 2003, this lady will be probably the most influential female in the real estate industry in another 2, I would have just gone, I don't know what you're smoking, but it cannot be legal, right? But I've seen the influence. To have her as a friend is just insane. I look at Michelle Tynan and I go, how friggin' lucky am I? I look at Dustin, I don't think the same. But I'm only joking, Dustin.
I do, mate.
I look around this room, Jason, shut up. I look at a lot of people around this room and I just think, there's a lot of people in here. My message back to you is that when you really stop and think about it, if you think about your life and the people who change your trajectory, I reckon you'll find more than one. Then my question to you would be, when was the last time you told them that they influenced you in your life? And I do a lot of talks for free. This isn't one of them, so I'll invoice you. But one of the talks I do at schools, I say, if someone's made an influence in your life, let them know, because they don't know. And then you take just 1 minute, write a note. Hey Katrina, something you said at a conference, the way you introduced me, made me look differently about the service I'm bringing, and it's really improved me. I just want to say thank you. How hard is that? So I think all of us in the room, if we're really honest, have got multiple people that have changed our lives. My question is, if you know it and they don't, that's on you. So I would take a moment, and then you say, well, unfortunately he's passed on. You can still talk to him, you can still say thank you, you can still write a note. I think most of this stuff, we're in an industry with some really cool people, and we don't let them know the influence that they're having on us.
100%.
Anywhere near enough, that would be my message.
I couldn't agree more. That's an amazing one. Mic drop. Look, I mean, the easy answer for me is my kids, right? That's my easy answer, right? Because in the front of the book's dedicated to the kids, right? And in the front of the book, it says, to Eliza, who saved me, and to Cal, who made me, right? And it was the easiest thing to write in the whole world, because Eliza got me at a time where I was at the end. I mean, Felicity, their mum, who's here tonight, and I'm really grateful that she is, she had the balls to stand up to what was going on in my head. Not me, but what was going on in me. And it all came about through Eliza coming into the world, right? And then Cal, who's a little fucking rock star, he's made me realize that I've got an example to set to him as a man, you know? And I'm not talking about masculinity and all that sort of stuff. I'm talking about manners. I'm talking about being a help to someone who needs it and things like that, right? Holding the door open for people and all that sort of stuff that was drilled into me as a kid. But it's helping to remind me, and they are forever teaching me stuff. It's not even funny. It's not even funny. So that's the easy answer, is those two. And they will forever keep changing the trajectory of my life. And I'm really glad that they're going to be honest. Yeah. So. Lockie.
I'd love to know, talking about success, if each of you could go back and speak like to the younger version of yourself, would you all now be the role model that you needed at that age? And if so, why?
So the question, great question. So the question is, if you could go back and talk to the younger version of yourself, would you be the role model that you needed back then? And if so, why? Great question. Shannah.
In my 20s, in my sport career in sports marketing, I worked 7 days a week. I married my job. I loved my job. My job was flying around watching sporting events and signing up athletes and getting them to wear product and having dinner with their mum and their dad and their dog and their auntie, whatever it took to get the deal done. And it was just an incredible opportunity in my 20s. And I forgot about myself, and I forgot to pace myself. And everything was external. There was nothing internal. And that cost me my health. So by the age of 30, I was in bed for a year with chronic fatigue. And it's something 25 years later, I still have to manage on a daily basis. And I think if I could have been the role model for myself, it would have been to embrace the pace. It could have been, you know, you do need to take rest. No one really cares how many books we sell. And no one cares how many talks we do or how many clients we have or your eulogy. Nobody really gives a shit about anything except how you made them feel. And I wish I could have known that in my 20s, definitely. And that's what I would be teaching myself now, because for now I've written 8 books. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's actually, how do I make my family feel, my clients feel, my partner feel, and do I protect the asset and care for myself with kindness and compassion to manage their health? So, yeah, I think that would be my answer.
Nice. Scotty?
I think the current version of me would probably try to be the mentor and have that influence. I look at what I've been able to achieve and what I'm grateful for and what a wonderful life I live now that is so different from what I could have imagined back then. And I want to give back because of that. So modern version me wants to sort of pay it back. Younger version of me wouldn't have listened. Too scared, too stubborn, too arrogant. Never would have, driven out of fear, but driven. So yes, I think I would like to have had that influence. No, that version of me wouldn't have heard it. So it's one of the tough things, yeah.
Mel?
There is a current trend going on TikTok and Instagram where you have where you have a coffee with your younger self. Has anyone seen that? That's going on at the moment. So I just did that. This isn't a shameless plug at myself, but it's my last post. It's at Mel Yu on Instagram, and you'll see where I did a video where I said, I went to coffee with my younger self, and she sat in front of me and she said that she's really grieving and suffering from the loss of her boyfriend. And I said to her that you're going to go through many more heartaches, but you're going to find happiness from within. And then she told me, I'm feeling really insecure and I really feel ugly and hate my body. And I said to her, I feel really confident and I no longer wear makeup and hide behind a mask. And then she said to me, I want to travel the world and experience the world. And I said to her, I just came back and took my mum and dad, mum and daughter, mum and sister back from Europe. And so there's this nice little dialogue that we're having online at the moment with our younger self, and I highly recommend everyone play around with that journey, because then I hugged this little girl and she asked before we left our coffee date, am I going to be okay? And I said, darling, you already are. So yeah, I am proud of me, and I'm proud of my younger self, and I'm proud that I can now be a mentor for a lot of young women that have felt like they don't belong and that there is no representation, and there's girls like me, and I can kind of just show them that it's achievable and it's possible.
Seriously, can you tell that she wears a heart on her sleeve, man? Far out. Mental. There.
So my message to you would be to say that, again, don't rush in on this, but when you're a parent, you get a chance to think how you would have coached your younger self. And so one of the things I'm fortunate, I have a 32-year-old son about to turn 33, a 30-year-old son about to turn 31, and so every time I looked at them at a young age, I would think, what would be the advice I wish I had had at that stage? But I think the simple answer, Locke, is there's no substitute for actually living life. So, the reality is I think I'm wiser today because of what I went through, as Scott would have mentioned, as I'm sure Mel would confirm, and Shannah's already said. So I think to be the best coach to someone else, you have to live the experience. I will do anything with anyone who's done it. But if they tell me they've got a theory on how to skydive but they've never packed a parachute, fuck that. I'm just not getting into a plane with anyone like that, right? My message to you would be to say, if you could go back, I would be saying to myself, it'll be okay. It will work out. You don't need to stress so much. You just keep being kind, keep showing up, bring a work ethic, keep working harder on yourself than you do at the job, serve many. If you give everything you've got to everyone else, you'll get everything you want. And if someone had told me that at 10, I would have probably been like Scott going, okay, where's the next game? Can we go play something? But that would be the message. I don't think we get a chance to live life in the rear vision mirror. What we do get the chance is, when we get a chance to meet a 10-year-old kid, talk like, if I was your age, here's what I would love someone to have given me as a direction going forward. Live like that, and don't rush out and be a father, because your mother would kill me for that.
Yep. From my side of things, Marie, Doc Marie, who I believe was, hopefully she's here somewhere, who I've been working with almost for 9 years now. We've had some fun dealing with a very angry kid, a very, very angry kid. Now, I was super lucky. Like I had an awesome upbringing. My parents worked their asses off to make sure that they provided everything for me that they never had, right? They were incredible. But the one problem that I had in myself, which is not of their doing, is the fact that I started to feel like I was living vicariously, like in the sense of wanting to achieve everything for other people. This whole book thing, one of the biggest things that it's taught me is a sense of ownership. And so one thing that I know that I'm going to be telling Cal and Lizzie asked me earlier this week, she goes, Dad, what do you think I should be when I grow up? She asked me that when we were on the couch. And I said to her, I said, darling, don't worry about what you're going to be. Just focus on finding out who you are, right? Don't worry about what you're going to be. Focus on who you are, because as soon as you work that out, all the other shit will fall into place. Yeah? So that's one thing that, my parents, because they worked hard, they were in the police, so they were dealing with some seriously shit stuff at work and what have you. I'm still close. My mum's kicking around. Where is she? Hey, Mum. So still incredibly close to them. But ultimately, we've got 8 billion people on the planet, and we're all wired differently, even if they are our kids. So we can't truly know if what we're saying is the right thing or the wrong thing. And you've got to learn, and that's one thing that I wish I'd learned to explore myself. Because it took a while to work that one out, and a whole load of shit and drama and tears and all that sort of stuff for us to work it out, right? So that's mine. So yeah. Anyway, enough questions. Thank you so much to Lockie. Thank you so much to Mary to helping us with that. Team, I want to thank each of these incredible individuals. If you could put your hands together, please, for Shannah Kennedy, Scott Bateman, Mel Yu, Rik Rushton. And a big, big thank you to all of you for being so awesome. The check's in the mail for the laughter and all that sort of jazz. Thank you so much. Team, it's been an absolute pleasure. Did you all get even a small degree of value from what was said tonight? Awesome. Well, hopefully, team, this podcast has done what the book is supposed to do and make success feel that little bit more accessible for you and for those loved ones around you. Team, until next time, and I've got to round the podcast off now. Team, until next time, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Thank you so much to each of you incredible human beings for being with me tonight and sharing in this amazing evening, and to all of you for giving us your time and attention. You don't know how much it means. Take care, team. Look after yourself.